My name is Margot, and I'm 32 years old. Right now, I'm standing in my childhood home's kitchen, phone trembling in my hand, listening to my 8-year-old daughter sob in the bathroom down the hall. My mother just told her she wasn't invited to Thanksgiving dinner. Not because we had other plans. Not because of a misunderstanding. But because my sister wanted an adult evening, and my mother agreed without hesitation. My mother stands in front of me now, arms crossed, face cold, showing absolutely no remorse for breaking my little girl's heart. In this moment, staring at the woman who raised me, I make a decision that will change everything. I have access to all her financial accounts, every credit card, every password, and am about to use that power. Before we dive into what happened next, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever dealt with toxic family dynamics or had to protect your child from people who should love them, hit that like button. Subscribe because this story gets intense, and you won't want to miss how this all unfolds. Trust me, what I did next was calculated, deliberate, and absolutely necessary. Let's get into it. To understand why I did what I did, you need to understand my family. My relationship with my mother, Patricia, has always been complicated. I was never the daughter she wanted. From the time I was young, it was clear that my younger sister, Simone, was the golden child. Simone got the praise, the attention, the unconditional support. I got criticism and comparisons. When I worked 2 jobs to put myself through college, Patricia barely acknowledged it. When Simone decided to go to university, Patricia paid for everything: 4 years of tuition, room and board, even spending money. The message was clear. Simone was worth the investment. I was not. Things got worse when I got pregnant at 23. I wasn't married. The father left before Ruby was born, and I was terrified. I thought maybe, just maybe, my mother would step up and support me. Instead, she called me irresponsible and told me I'd made my bed and now had to lie in it. Meanwhile, 2 years later, when Simone married Gregory, a wealthy banker, Patricia threw her a lavish wedding that cost more than I made in a year. The contrast was impossible to ignore. My struggles were my fault, my failures. Simone's successes were celebrated like national holidays. But despite all of that, I tried to maintain a relationship. I wanted Ruby to know her grandmother, to have that connection I never really had with my own grandparents. Ruby is the sweetest child you could imagine. She's sensitive, thoughtful, and tries so incredibly hard to please everyone. She also has some learning difficulties, nothing severe, but she processes information differently and has a slight speech impediment. Instead of seeing these as things Ruby is working through with tutors and speech therapy, Patricia dismisses them as laziness or lack of discipline. Ruby adores her grandmother anyway, constantly trying to win her approval with drawings, handmade cards, excited stories about school. Patricia accepts these offerings with thin smiles and vague acknowledgments, never really seeing Ruby for the amazing kid she is. Every year, we do Thanksgiving at Patricia's house. It's usually Patricia, me, Ruby, Simone, Gregory, and their 3 children, who are 6, 9, and 11. The cousins get along reasonably well, though I've noticed Patricia fawns over Simone's kids in a way she never does with Ruby. Still, it's tradition, it's family, and Ruby looks forward to it every year. So when Simone announced a month ago that this year's Thanksgiving would be an intimate adult gathering, I genuinely thought she was joking. When Patricia immediately agreed and suggested I find other arrangements for Ruby, I felt like I'd been slapped. I laughed it off at first, thinking surely they'd clarify. Surely they didn't mean Ruby specifically was being excluded. But the days passed, and the invitations were sent to everyone except us, and I realized they were serious. Today, I brought Ruby over to Patricia's house to drop off some pie ingredients I'd picked up for her. Ruby was so excited, chattering about what she wanted to wear to Thanksgiving dinner, asking if she could help Grandma cook this year. We walked into the kitchen, and Ruby ran up to Patricia with that bright, hopeful smile. "Grandma, are we having turkey or ham this year? I've been practicing my table manners." Patricia looked down at her, and I saw something cold pass over her face. "Oh, sweetheart," she said in that patronizing tone. "I've come to hate This year's dinner is for grown-ups only. You understand, don't you? Ruby's smile faltered. Her little face crumpled, confusion and hurt washing over her features. But Grandma, it's Thanksgiving. We always spend it together. Patricia waved her hand dismissively. Plans change, dear. You'll have other Thanksgivings. I watched my daughter's world shatter in real time. Her eyes filled with tears, her lip trembled, and she looked at me like I could fix this, like I could make Grandma take it back. My entire body went cold. I put my hand on Ruby's shoulder and looked at my mother. Mom, can we talk privately? Patricia sighed like I was inconveniencing her. Ruby, sensing the tension, whispered that she needed to use the bathroom and fled down the hall. The moment she was out of sight, I turned on Patricia. What the hell was that? My mother straightened her spine, defensive. Don't use that tone with me, Margot. It's just one dinner. Just one dinner. As if that made it okay. As if crushing an 8-year-old's heart was acceptable because it was only happening once. Why is Ruby specifically excluded? I demanded. Patricia pursed her lips. Simone wants a sophisticated evening. She's hosting this year, and she thought it would be better without children running around. A cold suspicion formed in my gut. Simone's children are coming, aren't they? The flicker in Patricia's eyes told me everything. That's different, she said. They're older. They know how to behave at formal dinners. Ruby was 8. Simone's youngest was 6. The math didn't add up, and we both knew it. Tell me the truth, I said quietly. Patricia's mask slipped, just for a moment, and I saw the ugly truth underneath. Ruby doesn't fit in with her cousins. Shay's different, Margot. You know that. Different. That word hung in the air between us like poison. What do you mean, different? I asked, though I already knew. Patricia sighed as if explaining this to me was exhausting. She has those issues with reading, that speech thing. Simone is bringing Gregory's boss and his wife to dinner. They're important people, and we need to make a good impression. Ruby might embarrass the family. Embarrass the family. My mother just said my daughter might embarrass the family. I felt rage rising in my chest, hot and consuming. But before I could respond, I heard a small gasp from the doorway. Ruby was standing there, frozen, her face pale. Shed heard everything. Shed heard her grandmother call her different, call her an embarrassment. Our eyes met, and I saw something break inside her. She turned and ran back to the bathroom, and I heard the lock click, followed by muffled sobbing that tore my heart into pieces. I looked at my mother, this woman who gave birth to me, who was supposed to love my child unconditionally, and I saw a stranger. She heard you, I said, my voice shaking. Patricia had the decency to look uncomfortable for about half a second before her face hardened again. Shell, get over it. Children are resilient. Then, she added, as if it were helpful advice, maybe this will motivate her to work on her issues. I stood there, listening to my baby cry through a locked door, and something inside me shifted. I thought about how for 3 years I'd been managing my parents' financial affairs. After my father Vernon had a stroke, Patricia asked me to take over their banking, their bills, their credit cards, everything. She'd given me power of attorney, full access to every account. I had every password, every PIN, every login credential. Patricia had trusted me with her entire financial life. And in that moment, listening to Ruby sob, hearing my mother's callous dismissal of my daughter's pain, I realized something. I held all the power here. Patricia's comfortable lifestyle, her shopping trips, her expensive dinners, her ability to host elaborate Thanksgiving gatherings, all of it depended on those credit cards and bank accounts that I controlled. And she had just declared war on my child. I walked to the bathroom door and spoke softly to Ruby. Baby, we're leaving. Come out when you're ready. I heard her shaky breathing, then the sound of the lock. She emerged with red, swollen eyes and tear-stained cheeks. She didn't look at Patricia as we left. Neither did I. But I was already forming a plan. The car ride home was silent except for Ruby's occasional sniffles. I kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror, watching her stare out the window with that blank, hurt expression that no child should ever have to wear. When we got home, she went straight to her room without a word. I made her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with the special breadcrumb topping she loved, but she wouldn't come out to eat. I stood outside her door and listened to the silence, which was somehow worse than crying. That night, after Id finally convinced Ruby to drink some water and eat a few crackers, after Id tucked her into bed and kissed her forehead while she stared at the ceiling, I opened my laptop. I logged into my parents' primary bank account first, then the credit card accounts, all 7 of them. American Express, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, 3 different department store cards. I looked at the statements, the spending patterns. Patricia was living large. Weekly salon appointments at $150 each. Shopping sprees at Nordstrom and Neiman Marcus. Expensive restaurants, organic groceries from the fanciest stores, subscription boxes for wine and gourmet foods. Her lifestyle was entirely dependent on these cards. My father's pension and Social Security covered the mortgage and utilities, but everything else, all of Patricia's luxuries and comforts, came from credit. I could take all of this away with a few phone calls. But I needed to be sure this wasn't just about Simone wanting an adult evening. I needed to know how deep this betrayal went. So I opened Patricia's email, which I had access to as part of managing their affairs, and I started searching. I typed Ruby into the search bar, and my stomach dropped. There was an email chain between Patricia and Simone from 6 weeks ago. The subject line was, Thanksgiving planning. I opened it, and with each line I read, my heart hardened a little more. Simone had written, Mom, I know this sounds harsh, but can we make this Thanksgiving adults only? Gregory's boss Bernard is coming with his wife, and this dinner could really help Gregory's career. I don't want any distractions. Patricia's response, Do you mean no children at all? Simone, well, our kids will be there obviously, but I was thinking we could tell Margot that Ruby isn't invited. Honestly, that weird kid makes everyone uncomfortable. The way she talks, those awkward silences when she can't follow conversations. Bernard might think there's something wrong with the family. That weird kid. My daughter, my sweet, sensitive, brilliant daughter, reduced to that weird kid by her own aunt. And Patricia's response broke me. I understand completely. Ruby has always been a bit of a challenge. I think it's best if we keep this dinner focused and polished. Ill-handled telling Margot. No defense of Ruby, no pushback against Simone's cruelty. Just immediate agreement that my daughter was a problem to be excluded. They'd been planning this for 6 weeks. 6 weeks of family dinners where they smiled at Ruby, of phone calls where Patricia pretended to care, all while plotting to exclude her from Thanksgiving because she might embarrass them in front of Gregory's boss. I kept searching through the emails, and I found more. An email from Ruby's school from 2 months ago, inviting family members to Ruby's fall play. Ruby had a small part, just a few lines, but she'd been practicing for weeks. She'd been so excited, kept asking if Grandma would come. It assumed Patricia had been too busy. But there in the email chain was Patricia's response to the teacher. Thank you for the invitation, but I don't think you'll be able to attend. Ruby's performance skills aren't quite developed enough yet to make it worth the trip. Not too busy, not a scheduling conflict. Just a cold calculation that Ruby wasn't performing well enough to deserve her grandmother's attendance. I sat back in my chair, my hands shaking. Ruby had been getting rejected by Patricia for months, maybe longer, and I hadn't fully seen it. I'd noticed the lukewarm responses, the lack of enthusiasm, but I'd convinced myself it was just Patricia's personality, that she wasn't demonstrative with affection. Now I saw the truth. Patricia had been slowly, methodically distancing herself from Ruby, embarrassed by her granddaughter's differences, unwilling to invest time or love in a child she saw as flawed. And Simone had been right there with her, teaching her own children that it was okay to exclude family members who didn't meet certain standards. This wasn't just about one dinner. This was about Ruby's worth as a human being, about whether she deserved love and acceptance despite not fitting into their narrow definition of perfect. I thought about just calling the banks right then, canceling everything in a fury. But I stopped myself. If I was going to do this, I needed to do it right. I needed to time it perfectly for maximum impact. I needed Patricia to feel the humiliation Shed inflicted on Ruby. Thanksgiving was in 2 days. On Thursday. Tomorrow was Wednesday, the day everyone does their final shopping for the big meal. Patricia would be at the grocery store, at the wine shop, picking up last-minute items for her sophisticated dinner party. Her cart would be full of expensive ingredients, truffle oil and imported cheeses and organic turkey, and every single one of her cards would be flying, publicly, humiliating, in front of other shoppers and cashiers. She would stand there, confused and embarrassed, unable to complete her purchase for the dinner where my daughter wasn't welcome. I would make sure she understood, viscerally, what it felt like to be excluded, to be rejected, to be found wanting in a moment that mattered. I heard Ruby crying again through her bedroom wall, soft, heartbroken sobs that she was trying to muffle with her pillow. I walked to her room and sat on the edge of her bed. "Baby," I whispered, stroking her hair. She looked up at me with those beautiful, hurt eyes. "Mama, what did I do wrong?" My heart shattered all over again. "Nothing, sweetheart. You did nothing wrong." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Grandma said, indifferent. She said it embarrassed the family. I must have done something wrong." I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight. "Listen to me, Ruby. You are perfect exactly as you are. The problem isn't you. The problem is people who can't see how special you are." But even as I said it, I knew Ruby didn't believe me. How could she, when her own grandmother had rejected her? I stayed with Ruby until she finally fell asleep, exhausted from crying. Then I went back to my laptop and started making calls. Tomorrow morning, first thing, I would contact every credit card company, every bank. I would report the cards as compromised and request immediate cancellation. I would use my legal authority as financial manager to shut down Patricia's comfortable life, at least temporarily, and I would make sure she knew exactly why it happened. This wasn't just about revenge, though I won't lie and say that wasn't part of it. This was about drawing a line. This was about showing Ruby that her mother would protect her, that actions have consequences, that you don't get to treat people cruelly and then expect their continued support and cooperation. Patricia wanted a sophisticated Thanksgiving dinner. She was about to learn that sophistication requires more than the right menu. It requires basic human decency. And Shed just proven she didn't have any. I barely slept that night. I kept rehearsing what I would say to the bank representatives, how I would justify the cancellations. Technically, I had every legal right to do this. Patricia had given me full power of attorney over her finances. I could freeze accounts, cancel cards, make transfers, anything I deemed necessary for her financial protection. And wasn't I protecting her? If someone was using these cards to finance an event that caused emotional harm to a family member, couldn't that be considered a form of financial abuse? I could make the argument, and more importantly, I had the authority. They couldn't stop me. Wednesday morning arrived, and Ruby still wouldn't talk. She got ready for school like a robot, mechanical movements, no spark in her eyes. When I dropped her off, her teacher, Miss Caldwell, gave me a concerned look. I mouthed later and drove away before I started crying in the school parking lot. Then I went home, made a strong cup of coffee, and started making calls. First, American Express. I need to report a compromised account and request immediate cancellation. I told the representative. She asked for the account details, which I provided along with my power of attorney information. "Has there been fraudulent activity on the card?" she asked. I chose my words carefully. "I have reason to believe the card is being used for purposes that conflict with the account holder's best interests and the family's well-being." It was vague enough to sound legitimate, specific enough to trigger their fraud protocols. Within 10 minutes, the card was canceled. New cards would be issued in 7 to 10 business days. I repeated this process with every card. Visa, canceled. MasterCard, canceled. Discover, canceled. The department store cards, all canceled. Each time, I used my legal authority, my position as financial manager, and carefully worded concerns about the account's security. By 10 a.m., Patricia had zero access to credit. I also placed a hold on the primary checking account, the one Patricia used for everyday expenses. I left Vernon's separate account alone because he needed it for his medications and doctor's appointments, but I removed Patricia's access to their joint funds. She would wake up this morning with money in the bank, but no way to access it. No cards, no checks that would clear, nothing. She was financially frozen. I felt a savage satisfaction as I finished the last call, but also a tremor of fear. Id just declared nuclear war on my mother. There was no coming back from this. Our relationship, whatever was left of it, would be destroyed. But then I thought about Ruby's face yesterday, the way Shed looked when Patricia called her different, and my resolve hardened. Some relationships aren't worth saving. Around 11:30, my phone rang. Patricia. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Another voicemail. Then a text message in all caps. My cards aren't working. Call me now. I smiled grimly and didn't respond. 20 minutes later, another call. This time I answered. Hi, Mom. Margot. What the hell is going on? I'm at Whole Foods, and every one of my cards was declined. The cashier thinks I'm some kind of fraud. There are people waiting behind me. This is humiliating. I kept my voice neutral, almost bored. That's strange. What do you mean they're not working? She was practically hissing into the phone, trying to keep her voice down. I mean exactly what I said. They're all declined. Every single one. And when I tried to use the checking account, that didn't work either. What did you do? I paused, letting the silence stretch. Those are serious accusations, Mom. Are you suggesting I did something to your accounts? Her voice rose. I know you did something, Margot. You're the only one with access. Fix this. Now. I'm hosting Thanksgiving tomorrow, and I need to buy food. I let another beat pass. Hosting Thanksgiving. Right. The one Ruby isn't invited to. Silence on the other end. Then Patricia's voice, tight and controlled. So this is about that. You're sabotaging me because you're upset. I'm not sabotaging anything, I said calmly. I'm fulfilling my duties as your financial manager. If I see something concerning, I have an obligation to protect the accounts. That's what I'm doing. She made a sound of pure frustration. This is insane. You're punishing me for setting boundaries at a family dinner. Setting boundaries. That's what she was calling it. You told my daughter she was too embarrassing to be included in Thanksgiving, I said, my voice hardening. You called her different. You said she might embarrass the family. You stood there while she cried and showed absolutely no remorse. Patricia's tone shifted, became defensive. I was being honest. Ruby does have issues, and Simone asked me to make this dinner adults only. I didn't think it was such a big deal. A big deal. Ruby's heartbreak wasn't a big deal. I closed my eyes, trying to keep my composure. Harry's what's going to happen, Mom. You're going to figure out your Thanksgiving dinner without my help. And you're going to think about why your cards aren't working. Maybe by the time you've figured it out, you'll understand why I did it, she gasped. So you admit you canceled my cards? I smiled even though she couldn't see me. I didn't say that. I said there might be issues with the accounts. Banks get really backed up this time of year. Security reviews can take a while. Could be days. Could be weeks. The panic in her voice was satisfying. Margot, you can't do this. I have a dinner to host. Important people are coming. Important people. More important than Ruby, apparently. You should probably call Simone, I suggested. Maybe she can help. After all, this is her special dinner where children who don't meet her standards aren't welcome. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. There was no taking it back now. An hour later, Simone called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. What, Simone? Her voice was sharp with irritation. Mom called me freaking out about her credit cards not working. She seems to think you did something. Please tell me you're not actually sabotaging Thanksgiving because you're mad about the guest list. Sabotaging Thanksgiving. As if I were the villain here. I'm managing Mom's finances, which is my job. If there are issues with her accounts, that's between her and the banks. Simone sighed heavily. Margot, this is ridiculous. It's one dinner. Ruby will survive missing one family gathering. One dinner. That's all Ruby's pain was worth to them. You know what's interesting, Simone? I found your emails. The ones where you called my daughter that weird kid. The ones where you and Mom planned to exclude her 6 weeks ago because she might make Gregory's boss uncomfortable. Dead silence on the other end. Then Simone's voice, colder now. You went through Mom's emails. I manage her accounts. I have access to everything. And I saw exactly what you think of Ruby. Simone's facade cracked. Fine. You want the truth? Yes. Gregory's boss is coming. Yes. This dinner matters for his career. And yes, Ruby doesn't fit the image we're trying to project. She's awkward, Margot. She makes people uncomfortable with that speech thing and the way she zones out during conversations. This dinner needs to go perfectly, and we can't have any wild cards. Wild cards. My daughter was a wild card. So, your career advancement is more important than Ruby's feelings, I said flatly. Simone hesitated. It's not about more important. It's about being practical. Ruby wouldn't even enjoy this dinner. It'll be boring adult conversation. We're actually doing her a favor. I laughed, a harsh sound. A favor. Right. Is that why she cried herself to sleep last night? Another pause. Kids are dramatic. Shell, get over it. That phrase again. Shell, get over it. As if trauma was something children just bounced back from with no lasting effects. Here's what's going to happen. I said, my voice ice cold. You're going to have your sophisticated dinner. And Mom is going to figure out how to pay for it without my help, and Ruby and I are going to have our own Thanksgiving with people who actually value her. And in the future, don't call me unless you're ready to apologize to my daughter. Not to me. To her. For being cruel. I hung up before she could respond. The rest of Wednesday was quiet. I picked up Ruby from school, and she was still withdrawn. We went home, and I tried to talk to her about doing our own special Thanksgiving, just the two of us. She just nodded. No enthusiasm. No spark. That night, as I was putting her to bed, she asked quietly, Mama, am I broken? My heart stopped. What? No, baby, why would you think that? She looked at me with those solemn eyes. Grandma said, I'm different. The kids at school say I talk funny. I can't read as fast as everyone else. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I sat on her bed and pulled her close. Ruby, listen to me. Different doesn't mean broken. Different means unique. You see the world in your own special way, and that's a gift. She shook her head against my shoulder. It doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like something's wrong with me. I held her tighter, feeling the weight of every moment of rejection Shed experienced, every time someone made her feel less than, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that I'd made the right choice. If Patricia and Simone couldn't see Ruby's worth, they didn't deserve access to her life, or mine, or my cooperation with their comfortable, carefully curated existence. Tomorrow was Thanksgiving, and I knew it was going to be a disaster for them. And honestly, I was looking forward to it. Thursday morning, Thanksgiving Day, arrived with gray skies and a chill in the air. Ruby and I stayed in our pajamas. I made pancakes shaped like hearts, trying to coax a smile from her. She ate a few bites, more to please me than because she was hungry. I suggested we watch the Makesees' Thanksgiving Day parade, something we'd always done together before heading to Patricia's house. Ruby curled up on the couch with her favorite blanket, watching the giant balloons float across the screen with dull eyes. I sat next to her, stroking her hair, and wondered what was happening at my mother's house right now. I didn't have to wonder long. My phone started buzzing around 10 in the morning. Patricia, calling again. I ignored it. Then Simone. Ignored. A text from Patricia. This is cruel and vindictive. You're ruining everything. I turned my phone on silent and focused on Ruby. Around noon, I suggested we order Chinese food, Ruby's favorite. She perked up slightly at that. Really? On Thanksgiving? I smiled. Why not? We can start our own traditions. Just you and me. She considered this. Can we get crab rangoon? My heart lifted at the first sign of interest shown in anything. We can get all the crab rangoon you want, baby. I placed the order, and while we waited, I set up a movie marathon. Disney films, the ones that always made Ruby laugh. By the time the food arrived, she was smiling, just a little. We ate on the couch, using paper plates, watching Moana sing about going beyond the reef. It wasn't a traditional Thanksgiving, but watching Ruby slowly come back to herself, seeing color return to her cheeks, hearing her giggle at Maui's antics, I realized this was better than any formal dinner could have been. What I learned later, from various sources and some admittedly petty Facebook stalking, was that Patricia's Thanksgiving was an unmitigated disaster. After failing to buy groceries at Whole Foods on Wednesday, Shed called Simone in a panic. Simone, annoyed at being bothered at work, had sent Patricia $300 through a payment app. It seemed like a lot until Patricia actually tried to shop with it. The organic free-range turkey Shed planned on? $80. The imported cheeses and specialty items Simone had requested? Another $100. Easily. Patricia ended up at a regular grocery store, buying whatever she could afford. Regular turkey, not organic. Standard vegetables, not artisanal. Cheap wine instead of the bottles Shed been saving. She spent Wednesday evening frantically cooking, stressed and furious, while Vernon tried to stay out of her way. Thanksgiving Day itself was worse. Simone and Gregory arrived with their 3 children around 2 in the afternoon. Simone took one look at the dining room table and her face fell. This wasn't the elegant, magazine-worthy spread Shed envisioned. The turkey was fine but unremarkable. The sides were basic, nothing special. The wine was grocery store brand, not the carefully selected bottles Patricia usually served. Simone pulled Patricia into the kitchen and hissed, "This is what you're serving to Bernard and Constance." Patricia, exhausted and humiliated, snapped back. "This is what I could afford after your sister sabotaged my credit cards." They argued in harsh whispers, while Gregory tried to entertain the children in the living room, all of them sensing the tension and getting fussy. When Bernard and Constance arrived at 3, the atmosphere was already strained. Bernard was Gregory's boss, a man in his late 50s with silver hair and an air of someone who expected excellence in all things. Constance was younger, his second wife, polished and elegant in a way that made Patricia feel immediately inadequate in her own home. They exchanged pleasantries, accepted wine, and sat down to dinner. The children were seated at a separate small table, which helped somewhat, but Simone's middle child, a 9-year-old boy named Parker, was in a mood. He complained about the food, kicked his sister under the table, and generally made a nuisance of himself. Patricia, already on edge, snapped at him sharply. Parker burst into tears. Simone jumped to her son's defense, glaring at Patricia. The adults at the main table pretended not to notice, but the awkwardness was palpable. Then came the wine incident. Simone's youngest, the 6-year-old girl named Lily, wanted to sit with the adults. Simone said no. Lily threw a tantrum, grabbing at her mother's wine glass and accidentally knocking it over. Red wine flooded across Patricia's white linen tablecloth, soaking into the fabric and dripping onto the carpet. Patricia screamed, actually screamed, startling everyone. She lunged for towels, trying to blot the stain, muttering furiously about ruined linens and ungrateful grandchildren. Constance and Bernard exchanged glances, the kind of silent communication that speaks volumes. This wasn't the sophisticated family dinner they'd been promised. This was chaos. Simone was mortified, dragging Lily to another room while the child wailed. Gregory tried to make conversation with Bernard about work, but the moment had passed. The dinner was ruined. They made it through the main course, barely. The conversation was stilted. Awkward pauses filled with the sounds of silverware on plates. Patricia was clearly stressed, her smile brittle and fake. Vernon, bless him, tried to tell stories about his time in the military, but his stroke had affected his memory, and he kept repeating himself, losing the thread of his narratives. Constance attempted polite engagement, asking about the family. "So, Patricia, I understand you have another daughter? And a granddaughter? Are they joining us later?" The question hung in the air like a grenade. Patricia's face went tight. "No, they had other plans." Constance's smile was curious. "Oh, that's a shame. I would have loved to meet them. How old is your granddaughter?" Simone jumped in quickly. "She's 8, very sweet. But Margot, my sister, decided to do her own Thanksgiving this year." Her tone was pointed, blaming me for not being there. Bernard raised his eyebrows. Family disagreement. Gregory laughed nervously. Nothing serious. Just scheduling conflicts. But Bernard wasn't stupid. The tension in the room, the obvious discomfort around the topic, told him there was more to the story. Constance tried once more. "Well, perhaps we can meet them at Christmas." Patricia forced a smile. "Perhaps." Dessert was served, Patricia's pumpkin pie that was slightly burned on the edges because she'd been so flustered while baking. They ate it with forced compliments. Bernard and Constance left before 7, making excuses about another engagement. Everyone knew they were lying. They just wanted to escape the uncomfortable atmosphere. After they left, Gregory turned on Simone. That was a disaster. Bernard looked like he wanted to run out of here. Simone turned on Patricia. "How could you serve that meal?" This was supposed to be impressive. Patricia's temper, held in check all evening, exploded. "I served what I could afford after Margot canceled all my credit cards." "If you wanted impressive, you should have paid for it yourself." They screamed at each other while Vernon retreated to his bedroom and the children cried in the living room. It was, by all accounts, the worst Thanksgiving the family had ever experienced, and Patricia knew exactly who to blame. Around 8 that evening, my phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered, cautious. "Hello." It was Vernon, calling from a neighbor's phone. "Margot, honey, it's Dad." My anger softened immediately. I'd never been mad at Vernon. He was a victim of Patricia's machinations as much as anyone. "Hi, Dad. How are you?" His voice was tired, sad. "Not great, sweetheart. Today was pretty awful." I felt a pang of guilt. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that, Dad." He sighed. "Your mother is very angry with you." "So is Simone. But honey, I need you to know something. I think you did the right thing. I wasn't expecting that." "What?" Vernon's voice grew stronger. "What they did to Ruby. Excluding her like that, it was wrong. I told Patricia so, but she doesn't listen to me anymore. I'm proud of you for standing up for your daughter. That's what parents are supposed to do." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thanks, Dad. That means a lot." We talked for a few more minutes, and he told me he loved me and Ruby, and that we should come visit him soon, just us. After I hung up, I felt lighter somehow. At least one person in my family understood. Ruby and I spent the rest of the evening watching movies and eating leftover Chinese food. Around 9, she climbed into my lap, something she rarely did anymore now that she was getting older. "Mama," she said softly. "Yes, baby." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I think I had a good Thanksgiving after all." I hugged her tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." That night, after Ruby was asleep, I allowed myself to think about what I'd done. I'd escalated a family conflict into a full-blown war. It humiliated my mother, ruined Simona's important dinner, and probably damaged Gregory's career prospects. I'd used my access to financial accounts as a weapon, something that could potentially have legal consequences if Patricia decided to push it. And yet, looking at Ruby's peaceful face as she slept, I couldn't bring myself to regret it. Some battles are worth fighting. Some bridges are worth burning. And protecting your child from people who hurt them, even family, especially family, is always the right choice. Friday morning, the day after Thanksgiving, I woke to 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. Most were from Patricia and Simone. but some were from extended family members. Aunt Lorraine, Patricia's older sister, had left a voicemail. I played it while making coffee. Margot, this is your Aunt Lorraine. I just spoke with your mother, and am shocked and appalled by your behavior. To sabotage her Thanksgiving like that, to use your access to her finances against her, it's unconscionable. Your mother is 70 years old, and you treated her like an enemy. I don't know what's gotten into you, but you need to apologize and make this right immediately. Family is everything, Margot. Everything. I deleted the message without responding. Family is everything. Unless you're an 8-year-old who doesn't meet their standards, apparently. Simone's text messages were venomous. Thanks to you, Gregory's career is probably ruined. Bernard left early, clearly uncomfortable. Has been cold to Gregory ever since. You sabotaged us because you couldn't handle Ruby not being invited to one dinner. Do you realize how selfish you are? How immature? You've destroyed this family over your inability to accept that Ruby has problems that make her difficult to include in adult situations. Grow up, Margot. I read the message 3 times, each time feeling my anger build. Ruby has problems. As if my daughter were defective, broken, less than. I typed out a response and then deleted it. Typed another and deleted that too. Finally, I settled on something simple and direct. Ruby doesn't have problems. She has a family that refuses to accept her as she is. And I refuse to support people who hurt my child. Don't contact me again unless you're ready to apologize to Ruby, not me, to her, for being cruel. I hit send and blocked Simone's number. Patricia tried a different tactic. She sent me a long email, and against my better judgment, I read it. Margot, what you did yesterday was vindictive and cruel. You deliberately humiliated me in public at the grocery store, forcing me to abandon a full cart of food in front of other customers. You sabotaged a Thanksgiving dinner that was important to your sister's family, to Gregory's career, to all of us. And for what? Because Ruby's feelings were hurt? Children get disappointed, Margot. That's part of life. They learn resilience by facing rejection and moving on. By coddling Ruby and treating her like she's fragile, you're doing her a disservice. And by punishing your entire family because we made one decision you disagreed with, you've shown your true colors. You're petty, vindictive, and unable to see beyond your own narrow perspective. I'm filing a formal complaint with the bank about your misuse of your authority over my accounts. I'm also consulting with a lawyer about revoking your power of attorney. You violated my trust, and there will be consequences. I suggest you think very carefully about your next steps, because you're on the verge of losing your entire family. I read it twice, looking for any hint of self-awareness, any acknowledgement that excluding Ruby was wrong. There was none. It was all about Patricia's humiliation, Simone's disappointment, the family's inconvenience. Ruby's pain didn't even register as a factor worth considering. I forwarded the email to my own lawyer, a friend from college named Judith who specialized in family law. I called her and explained the situation. She was quiet as I talked, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she said, "Okay, first of all, you're legally in the clear. You have power of attorney with full authority over her finances. You can freeze accounts, cancel cards, do pretty much anything you deem necessary for her financial well-being. Her lawyer will have a hard time proving you acted improperly, especially since you can argue you were protecting the accounts from misuse." I felt relief wash over me. So she can't actually do anything, Judith hesitated. She can make your life difficult. She can file complaints, challenge your authority, make accusations, but ultimately, she gave you this power legally, and you exercised it within your rights. That said, Margot, be prepared for this to get uglier before it gets better. Family conflicts involving money always do. She was right. Over the next few days, more family members weighed in. My cousin Derek called, trying to play peacemaker. Margot, I get that you're upset, but don't you think you overreacted? It was just one dinner. Ruby will have lots of other Thanksgivings. I was so tired of that phrase. Just one dinner. As if one act of cruelty was acceptable because it was singular. Derek. If someone punched you in the face just once, would you say it was just one punch? He sputtered. That's not the same thing. But it was exactly the same thing. One act of violence, one act of rejection. It still hurt. It still left a mark. My Uncle Raymond left a voicemail supporting Patricia. Your mother has always been good to you, Margot. She doesn't deserve this kind of treatment from her own daughter. I wanted to laugh. Always been good to me? The woman who favored Simone my entire life, who called me irresponsible when I got pregnant, who paid for Simone's education but not mine. That woman had always been good to me? The delusion was staggering, but not everyone sided with Patricia. My cousin Fiona, Gregory's sister, reached out via Facebook message. Margot, I heard about what happened. I just wanted you to know that I think what Patricia and Simone did to Ruby was horrible. Excluding a child from Thanksgiving because she might not fit the right image? That's disgusting. You did the right thing standing up for your daughter. Don't let them make you feel guilty. Much love, Fiona. I nearly cried reading it. At least one person in this family had some sense. I thanked her and told her I appreciated her support more than she knew. She responded, if you need someone to back you up, to tell people what really happened, I'm here. Gregory is my brother, but what Simone did was wrong. It was a small comfort, but it mattered. Wednesday of the following week, Patricia showed up at my house unannounced. I saw her car pull into the driveway through the window, and my stomach clenched. Ruby was at school, thank God. I didn't want her to see this confrontation. I opened the door before Patricia could knock, not inviting her in. What do you want, Mom? She looked thinner, more drawn than the last time I'd seen her. Good. Maybe stress and consequences were finally catching up with her. We need to talk, she said. I crossed my arms. So talk. She glanced past me into the house. Can I come in? I didn't move. No. Her lips thinned. Fine. Margot, this has gone on long enough. You've made your point. You're angry, I understand that. But you need to restore my access to those accounts immediately. I've been living on cash Vernon gave me, and it's not sustainable. I can't pay bills. I can't shop. I can't do anything. I raised an eyebrow. Sounds uncomfortable. Imagine how uncomfortable Ruby felt being told she wasn't welcome at Thanksgiving. Patricia's face hardened. This is not the same thing. And you know it. You're punishing me financially for a parenting decision. A parenting decision? That's what she called it. You're not Ruby's parent. I am. And you don't get to hurt my child and then demand my continued support. Patricia stepped closer, her voice rising. I'm your mother, Margot. I'm telling you to fix this. Now. I met her eyes, refusing to back down. Or what? You'll exclude me from family dinners too? Oh wait, you already did that. You've made it clear that Ruby and I aren't really part of this family unless we meet your standards. So why would I help you? Patricia's face flushed. Because it's the right thing to do. Because despite everything, I'm still your mother, and you owe me respect. I laughed. A bitter sound. Respect? You want to talk about respect? Let's talk about how you respected Ruby when you called her different and said she'd embarrass the family. Let's talk about how you respected me when you agreed to exclude my daughter without even discussing it with me first. Respect goes both ways, Mom, and you've shown none. Patricia pointed a finger at me, trembling with rage. You are being vindictive and petty. You're using Ruby as an excuse to cause drama because you've always been jealous of Simone. This is about your insecurity, not about protecting your daughter. That accusation hit a nerve, because part of me wondered if she was right. Was I using this as an excuse to punish Patricia for years of favoritism? I examined my heart and realized the truth. Yes, I resented the way Patricia had always treated Simone better, but that wasn't why I'd done this. I'd done it because I watched my daughter's heart break, because I heard her ask if she was broken, because no child should ever be made to feel like they're not good enough for their own family. Believe whatever you want, I said quietly, but I'm not restoring your accounts. You can apply for new cards yourself. You can talk to the banks yourself. I'm done managing your finances. Patricia's eyes widened. You can't do that. You're my financial manager. You have responsibilities. I shook my head. I'll be sending you formal resignation of power of attorney. You can find someone else to manage your affairs. Maybe Simone can do it. Patricia looked genuinely panicked now. Margot, please, don't do this. I need your help. And there it was, the crux of the matter. She needed my help. She wanted my labor, my time, my expertise, all while treating my daughter like an inconvenience. I stepped back and started to close the door. You should have thought about that before you hurt Ruby. Patricia put her hand on the door, stopping me. So you're really going to destroy our relationship over this? You're willing to lose your whole family. I looked at her. This woman who gave birth to me but never really saw me, who was now losing everything because she couldn't admit she was wrong. Mom, you destroyed our relationship when you told my crying daughter she wasn't good enough to be included in Thanksgiving. I'm just done pretending it didn't happen. I closed the door in her face. She stood on the porch for a moment, and I watched through the window as she finally turned and walked back to her car. She sat in the driver's seat for several minutes, not starting the engine, just sitting there. Part of me wanted to run out, to apologize, to make peace. But I thought about Ruby, about teaching her that her worth wasn't dependent on other people's acceptance. And I stayed inside. Patricia finally drove away, and I collapsed on the couch, shaking. The weekend after my confrontation with Patricia, I took Ruby to see her therapist, Dr. Brennan. WED started sessions 2 weeks ago, after the school called about Ruby's behavior changes. Dr. Brennan was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a gentle manner that put Ruby at ease. I sat in the waiting room while they had their session, flipping through magazines without really seeing them. After 45 minutes, Dr. Brennan came out and asked if I could join them for the last few minutes. I walked into her office, and Ruby was sitting on the couch, looking small and vulnerable. Dr. Brennan smiled at me. Ruby and I have been talking about what happened with her grandmother. I thought it might be helpful for us all to talk together. I sat next to Ruby, and she immediately leaned into me. Doctor, Brennan looked at Ruby encouragingly. Ruby, can you tell your mom what you told me about Thanksgiving? Ruby's voice was quiet. I told Dr. Brennan that I heard Grandma say I was different and that I'd embarrass the family, and that I've been feeling like maybe I am broken, like maybe something's wrong with me. My heart ached hearing her say it out loud. I put my arm around her. Dr. Brennan nodded. And we talked about how sometimes adults say hurtful things that aren't true, and how those things can make us feel bad about ourselves even when we shouldn't. Ruby, what else did we talk about? Ruby looked up at me. Dr. Brennan said that different doesn't mean bad. She said lots of people learn differently or talk differently, and that's okay. She said maybe Grandma was wrong. Her voice rose at the end, like a question, like she needed me to confirm it. I squeezed her tight. Dr. Brennan is absolutely right. Grandma was wrong, baby. There is nothing broken about you. Ruby's eyes filled with tears. Then why doesn't she love me? That question destroyed me. Dr. Brennan handed Ruby a tissue and spoke gently. Sometimes people have a hard time loving others who are different from them. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the person they can't love. It means there's something they need to work on in themselves. Ruby absorbed this. So it's Grandma's problem, not mine. Dr. Brennan smiled. Exactly. It's Grandma's problem. I saw something shift in Ruby's expression, a tiny weight lifting. She wasn't magically healed, trauma doesn't work that way, but she was starting to understand that her worth wasn't determined by Patricia's rejection. Dr. Brennan turned to me. Margot, I want to talk about boundaries. Ruby needs to know that you're protecting her, but she also needs to see that protecting her doesn't mean you're consumed by anger or revenge. Children pick up on their parents' emotional states. How are you doing with all of this? I considered lying, saying I was fine, but Ruby was looking at me, and I owed her honesty. I'm angry. I admitted. Really angry. And maybe part of me wanted to hurt my mother the way she hurt Ruby. But mostly, I just wanted her to understand that actions have consequences. You don't get to treat people badly and still benefit from their help and support. Dr. Brennan nodded thoughtfully. That's fair. And I think it's important that Ruby sees you standing up for her. But moving forward, try to focus less on punishing others and more on building a positive life for you and Ruby. Revenge can feel satisfying in the moment, but healing comes from creating new, healthier patterns. Her words resonated. I'd been so focused on making Patricia pay that I hadn't thought much about what came next, about how to actually move forward. You're right, I said. I need to focus on Ruby and on us, not on my mother. Dr. Brennan smiled. Good. And Ruby, remember what we talked about. You get to decide who's important to you, who you want in your life. You don't have to keep trying to win over people who don't appreciate you. Ruby nodded. And for the first time in weeks, I saw a hint of the confident, happy child she'd been before Thanksgiving. That week, I made good on my promise to Patricia. I drafted a formal resignation of power of attorney, had it notarized, and sent it via certified mail. I also sent copies to all the banks and credit card companies, informing them that I was no longer authorized to make decisions on Patricia's accounts. She would have full control again, but she'd also have full responsibility. No more relying on me to manage her finances, to track her spending, to handle her bills. She was on her own. When the certified mail receipt came back signed, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. It officially severed one of the last connections between us. 2 days later, I got an email from Simone. I hope you're happy. Mom's credit is ruined because of the late payments during the time you had her accounts frozen. She's having to rebuild everything from scratch. Dad's Social Security barely covers their basic expenses, and Mom can't get approved for new credit cards because of the marks on her credit report. She's crying every day, scared about how they'll manage. This is on you, Margot. All of it. I read the email and felt a flicker of guilt. I hadn't intended to ruin Patricia's credit, just to teach her a lesson. But then I remembered Ruby's tear-stained face, her question about whether she was broken, and the guilt evaporated. Patricia was crying? Ruby had cried herself to sleep. Patricia was scared. Ruby had been terrified that her own grandmother didn't love her. I wrote back, "Tell Mom to get a job, or ask you for money, since you were so willing to exclude Ruby to impress Gregory's boss. I'm sure you can spare some cash to help her out, but don't ask me. I'm done." I hit send and blocked Simone's email address too. I was cutting them out systematically, removing every avenue they had to manipulate or guilt me. It felt like pulling off a bandage, painful but necessary. December arrived, and with it came the annual email chain about Christmas plans. Normally, Christmas was held at Simona's house, a massive event with the entire extended family. 20 or more people crammed into her living room for gift exchanges and dinner. The email went out to everyone except me and Ruby. I saw it because Fiona forwarded it to me with a note. "Thought you should know. They're planning Christmas without you and Ruby." Simone wrote in the email that due to recent family conflicts, we're keeping this year intimate and drama-free. I'm not going. This is wrong. I appreciated Fiona's loyalty, but I told her she should go if she wanted to, that she didn't need to take sides in our family war. She insisted she was making her own choice based on principle. "I don't want to celebrate with people who exclude children," she said. "That's not the kind of family gathering I want to be part of." The exclusion from Christmas should have hurt, but instead I felt liberated. No more pretending everything was fine. No more forcing Ruby to interact with people who looked down on her. No more awkward family dinners where Simona's children got lavish gifts and Ruby got token presents that Patricia clearly bought last minute without thought. We were free. I told Ruby we'd do our own Christmas, just us, and maybe invite a few friends. Her face lit up. "Can we invite Zoe from school? And maybe Miss Caldwell if she doesn't have family plans?" I loved that Ruby's first thought was to include others who might be alone. "Absolutely. Well, make it special." Ruby hugged me. "I like our family better when it's just us anyway, Mama." Out of the mouths of babes. She was right. Our little family of 2, plus the people we chose to include, was better than the toxic dynamics of the extended family. We spent the first weekend of December decorating our small apartment. We bought a modest tree and covered it with handmade ornaments. Ruby made paper snowflakes and hung them in every window. We baked cookies, just the two of us, and made a huge mess of the kitchen. We watched Christmas movies and drank hot chocolate. It was simple, but it was ours, untainted by judgment or rejection. Mid-December, I got a call from Vernon. He sounded tired. "Margot, honey, I wanted to hear your voice." I softened immediately. "Hi, Dad. How are you?" He sighed. "Been better. Patricia's been really struggling since you resigned the power of attorney. She doesn't understand how to manage the accounts online, and she's gotten several late payment notices because she forgot to pay bills. I try to help, but with my memory issues from the stroke, I'm not much good at it." I felt a stab of guilt. Vernon didn't deserve to suffer because of my conflict with Patricia. "Dad, I can send you some resources. Instructions on how to set up automatic payments for the essential bills. That might help." He was quiet for a moment. "Would you consider coming back, just to set things up for us? You don't have to keep managing it, just help us get organized." I wanted to help Vernon. I really did. But I knew if I walked back into that house, Patricia would take it as a sign that shed one, that I was backing down. "Dad, I can't. I'm sorry, but I can walk you through things over the phone, or I can hire someone to come help you set up automatic payments. I'll pay for it." Vernon sounded sad but understanding. "Okay, sweetheart, I appreciate that." We talked for a while longer, and Vernon told me he missed Ruby. "She's such a special little girl, Margot. I'm sorry about what happened. I should have stood up to Patricia more." I assured him it wasn't his fault, that had always been good to Ruby, and that she missed him too. "Maybe we can meet for lunch sometime, just you, me, and Ruby." Vernon's voice brightened. "I'd like that very much." We made plans for the following week, and I felt lighter knowing I hadn't completely lost my father in all of this. After we hung up, I arranged for a financial management service to go to my parents' house and help them set up automatic payments for their essential bills. It cost me $200, but it was worth it to know Vernon wouldn't suffer because of Patricia's inability to manage her own affairs. When the service representative called me afterward, she said, "Your mother was very resistant to accepting help. She kept saying you should be doing this. But we got everything set up, and her bills will be paid on time from now on." I thanked her and tried not to think about Patricia's resentment. Christmas Eve, Ruby and I had our own celebration. Zoe came over, along with Miss Caldwell, who'd been delighted by the invitation. We made dinner together, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and meatballs, and we played board games and watched movies. Ruby laughed more that night than I'd heard in months. Zoe's mother picked her up around 9, and Miss Caldwell left shortly after, thanking us for including her. After they left, Ruby and I sat by our little tree, the lights twinkling in the darkness. "Mama," Ruby said softly. "Yes, baby." She leaned against me. This was the best Christmas Eve ever. I kissed the top of her head. "I think so too." We stayed up until midnight, just the two of us, and when Christmas Day arrived, we opened presents and ate leftover cookies for breakfast and spent the whole day in our pajamas. It was perfect. No stress, no judgment, no walking on eggshells around people who didn't value us. Just peace and love and acceptance. And I realized that this simple happiness with my daughter, was worth more than any relationship with people who made us feel small. We were building something new, something better, and we were doing it without them. The week between Christmas and New Year's brought unexpected developments. First, I got a letter from Patricia's lawyer. My hands shook as I opened it, fearing legal action. The letter was formal and cold, stating that Patricia was officially revoking my power of attorney, a step I'd already taken myself, so it was redundant. It also stated that she was considering legal action for financial elder abuse due to my cancellation of her credit cards without her explicit consent. I called Judith immediately. She read the letter and laughed. "This is posturing. They have no case. You had full legal authority to do what you did, and you've already resigned your position. This is just meant to scare you." I wasn't scared, just tired. Can they actually take me to court? Judith shook her head. They can try, but no judge will side with them. You acted within your legal rights, and you can demonstrate that your actions were in response to emotional harm being inflicted on your minor child. If anything, you have more grounds for a suit than they do, for grandparent alienation and emotional distress. I didn't want to sue anyone. I just wanted to be left alone. Tell them that if they pursue this, I'll countersue for emotional damages on Ruby's behalf. Judith grinned. I'll draft a response. Don't worry, Margot. They're bluffing. She was right. A week later, I got a terse email from Patricia's lawyer stating that they'd decided not to pursue legal action in the interest of family harmony. Translation: they knew they'd lose. But the damage to our family was done. The fractures that started at Thanksgiving had become chasms, unbridgeable divides that separated us permanently. Aunt Lorraine stopped speaking to me entirely, siding firmly with Patricia. My cousin Derek tried one more time to mediate, hosting a family dinner and inviting everyone in an attempt to clear the air. I declined. Ruby and I weren't interested in being ambushed by people who thought we were the problem. Derek was disappointed but gave up after that. Uncle Raymond wrote me a long letter about forgiveness and family loyalty. I read it once and threw it away. Forgiveness required repentance, acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Patricia had shown none of that. But the most significant fracture was between Simone and Gregory. Fiona called me in early January with gossip she thought I should know. Gregory's boss passed him over for the promotion, she said. Bernard told him that he had concerns about Gregory's judgment and family stability. The disastrous Thanksgiving dinner made Bernard question whether Gregory had the maturity and control needed for a senior position. My stomach dropped. I hadn't wanted Gregory to suffer. He was mostly innocent in all of this, just going along with his wife's schemes. That's awful, I said honestly. Fiona continued, and Gregory is blaming Simone for the whole thing. He says she insisted on the adults-only dinner. She's the one who excluded Ruby, and her poor planning with your mom resulted in the disaster. They've been fighting constantly. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends in divorce. Part of me felt vindicated. Simone had been so cruel about Ruby, so focused on appearances and career advancement, and now it was all falling apart. But part of me felt sad, too. Their children didn't deserve to grow up in a broken home because their parents made terrible choices. I'm not happy about any of this. I told Fiona. I just wanted Ruby to be treated with basic respect, Fiona agreed. I know. And for what it's worth, Gregory knows this is mostly Simone's fault. He told me he never wanted to exclude Ruby, that Simone pressured him into going along with it. He's ashamed of how it all went down. It was small comfort, but it was something. At least one person in that marriage had a conscience. The real shock came in late January. Vernon was hospitalized again, this time with pneumonia. Patricia called me from the hospital, her voice small and scared. Margot, it's your father. He's in the ICU. They said we should call family. My anger at Patricia evaporated instantly. I'm on my way. I grabbed Ruby, still in her pajamas, and drove to the hospital. When I arrived, Patricia was in the waiting room, looking haggard and old. She didn't say anything when she saw me, just nodded toward the ICU doors. I took Ruby's hand, and we went in. Vernon was hooked up to machines, breathing with the help of a ventilator. He looked so frail, so much older than I remembered. Ruby started crying. Is Grandpa going to die? I held her close. I don't know, baby. But he's tough. Has fought through a lot. We sat with him for hours. Patricia came in eventually, standing on the other side of the bed. We didn't speak to each other, both focused on Vernon. That night, after Ruby had fallen asleep in a chair in the waiting room, Patricia finally spoke. Thank you for coming. I looked at her across Vernon's sleeping form. Has my dad? Of course I came. She nodded, looking down at her hands. I've been thinking a lot about what happened. About Thanksgiving. About Ruby. My heart rate picked up. Was she actually going to apologize? She continued, her voice halting. I know I hurt her. I know I hurt you too. I've been telling myself that I was just supporting Simone. That it wasn't my responsibility to override her wishes for her own dinner party. But Vernon said something to me last week that stuck with me. He said that a grandmother's job is to love her grandchildren unconditionally, and that I failed Ruby. Tears welled up in my eyes. Vernon had said that? Patricia looked up at me. I'm not good at admitting when I'm wrong, Margot. I never have been. But I was wrong. Ruby didn't deserve to be excluded. She didn't deserve to be called different, like it was a bad thing. And you didn't deserve to have your daughter treated that way by your own family. I wanted to feel relief, vindication, satisfaction, but all I felt was tired. Do you understand why I did what I did? With the credit cards. Patricia's jaw tightened, and I saw her struggle. Finally, she nodded. You were protecting Ruby. And maybe you were trying to teach me a lesson. I'm still angry about the humiliation, about the financial mess I've been dealing with. But I understand why you felt you had to do it. It wasn't a full apology. It wasn't Patricia saying she was sorry for hurting Ruby, for decades of favoring Simone, for all the small cuts and rejections that had built up over the years. But it was acknowledgement. It was the closest thing to self-awareness I'd ever seen from my mother. Ruby has been in therapy, I said quietly. She spent weeks thinking there was something wrong with her because you called her different. She asked me if she was broken. Patricia's face crumpled. I never wanted her to feel that way. Her voice broke. I never meant to hurt her that much. I believed her. Patricia wasn't malicious, just thoughtless, self-centered, unable to see beyond her own perspective. She'd hurt Ruby without truly considering the depth of that harm. Intent doesn't erase impact, Mom, I said. You hurt her. Badly. And I won't let it happen again. Patricia wiped her eyes. What do I have to do to fix this? I thought about it. You need to apologize to Ruby. Actually apologize, not make excuses. You need to tell her that she's perfect as she is, that there's nothing wrong with her. And you need to mean it. Patricia nodded. I can do that. I hesitated. And you need to understand that things can't go back to how they were. I'm not managing your finances. I'm not forcing Ruby to spend time with family who don't value her. If you want a relationship with us, it'll be on our terms, with boundaries. Patricia looked like she wanted to argue, but then she just nodded. Okay. Vernon stabilized over the next few days and was moved out of the ICU. The doctors said he'd recover, though it would take time. As he got stronger, I brought Ruby to visit him. Patricia kept her distance, giving us space. Vernon held Ruby's hand and told her he loved her, that she was his special girl. Ruby beamed at him, and I saw how much his affection meant to her. On our way out, Patricia stopped us in the hallway. She knelt down to Ruby's level, something I'd never seen her do before. Ruby, sweetheart, I need to tell you something. Ruby looked at her warily. Patricia took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I said about you being different. I'm sorry for making you feel like you weren't welcome at Thanksgiving. There's nothing wrong with you, baby. You're wonderful just the way you are. It was me who was wrong, not you. Ruby's eyes widened. She looked at me, and I nodded encouragingly. Ruby turned back to Patricia. Do you really mean it? Patricia's voice cracked. I really mean it. Ruby thought about it for a long moment, then said quietly, Okay. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a crack in the wall. Patricia stood up, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for giving me another chance, she said to me. I didn't respond, just took Ruby's hand and walked away. Later, in the car, Ruby said, Mama, do you think Grandma will be nice to me now? I chose my words carefully. I think she's going to try, but we'll see. Actions matter more than words. Ruby nodded, wise beyond her years. I think so too. We drove home in comfortable silence, and I felt like maybe, just maybe, we'd turned a corner. Not back to how things were. That family was gone, shattered beyond repair. But forward, towards something new. Something healthier. February brought a cold snap, snow blanketing everything in white. Ruby loved the snow, and we spent weekends building snowmen and having snowball fights. She was smiling more, laughing more, slowly healing from the trauma of Thanksgiving. Her grades at school improved, and Miss Caldwell sent home a note saying Ruby seemed like a different child, more confident and engaged. I was proud of how far she'd come. But healing isn't linear. And just when I thought we'd moved past the worst of it, something happened that knocked us both back. Ruby's birthday was in mid-February. She'd be turning 9, and she wanted a small party with a few friends from school. We sent out invitations to 5 classmates, and I helped Ruby plan every detail. She wanted a princess theme, pink decorations, a castle cake, the works. One of the invitations went to her cousin, Simona's oldest daughter, Naomi, who was 11. Ruby and Naomi had been close when they were younger, before Simona's attitude toward Ruby had soured. Ruby missed her cousin and desperately wanted her at the party. I hesitated to send the invitation, knowing it would open communication with Simone, but Ruby begged, "Please, Mama. I miss Naomi." I couldn't say no to that face. I sent the invitation to Simone's house with a note. No pressure. Just wanted Naomi to know she's invited if she'd like to come. The day before Ruby's birthday party, Simone called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello." Simone's voice was strained. "Margot, it's me. I got the invitation for Naomi." I waited. "She really wants to come." Simone continued. "She's been asking about Ruby, saying she misses her, but am not comfortable with it, given everything that's happened between us." My temper flared. "Ruby invited Naomi, not you. This isn't about us." "It's about 2 kids who miss each other," Simone sighed. "I know that, but I'm Naomi's mother, and I make decisions about who she spends time with." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you seriously going to punish your own daughter because you and I are in a fight?" Simone was quiet for a moment. "I'm not punishing anyone. I just think it's better if we maintain boundaries until things are more settled." Boundaries. That word again, twisted to mean something it wasn't. "Simone, Ruby has been in therapy for months because of what you and Mom did. She's slowly starting to feel better. And now you're going to disappoint her again by keeping Naomi away." Simone's voice hardened. "That's not fair. This whole situation is complicated." I laughed bitterly. "It's only complicated because you're making it that way." We argued for 10 more minutes, getting nowhere. Finally, Simone said, "I'm sorry, but Naomi won't be coming to the party." Then she hung up. I stood there holding the phone, shaking with rage and frustration. Ruby came into the kitchen, excited about finalizing the party plans. "Mama, did Aunt Simone call? Is Naomi coming?" I looked at my daughter's hopeful face and felt my heart break all over again. "Baby, I'm sorry. Naomi can't make it." Ruby's face fell. "Why not?" I struggled for an answer that wouldn't devastate her. Her mom said they have other plans. Ruby wasn't stupid. She knew something was wrong. "Aunt Simone doesn't want her to come because of Thanksgiving, does she?" I couldn't lie to her. "Yeah, honey, I think that's part of it." Ruby's eyes filled with tears. "So I'm being punished even though I didn't do anything wrong." I pulled her into a hug. "You're not being punished. Your aunt is being unfair, and I'm so sorry." Ruby cried against my shoulder, and I felt my own tears falling. This was never going to end, the cycle of rejection and pain. The birthday party the next day was mostly successful. Ruby's 4 school friends came, and they had fun playing games and eating cake. But I could see the sadness in Ruby's eyes, the empty space where Naomi should have been. That night, after everyone left and Ruby was in bed, I sat in the dark living room and questioned everything. Had I made things worse for Ruby by retaliating against Patricia? Would Ruby have been better off if I'd just swallowed my pride, endured the Thanksgiving exclusion, and maintained peace? Maybe I'd been selfish, using Ruby's pain as justification for my own need for revenge. Maybe I was the one causing more harm. I called Judith, my lawyer friend, and broke down. "I don't know if I did the right thing. Ruby's still getting hurt. Simone won't let her cousin come to her birthday. Patricia's apology didn't change anything. Maybe I should have just let it go." Judith listened patiently, then said firmly, "Margot, listen to me. You stood up for your daughter when she was being mistreated. That's never the wrong choice. Yes, there have been consequences. Yes, Ruby is still dealing with pain. But that pain comes from other people's choices, not yours. You showed Ruby that she's worth defending, that her mother will protect her. That's invaluable. Her words helped, but I still felt lost. The next morning, Ruby came to breakfast with red, swollen eyes. Mama, I had a bad dream. I dreamed that Grandma told me I couldn't come to her house ever again because I'm too different. I held her while she cried, reassuring her it was just a dream. But the dream reflected Ruby's deep fear that she'd never be fully accepted, that there was something fundamentally wrong with her that made people push her away. I called Dr. Brennan and scheduled an emergency session. That afternoon, Ruby and I sat in Dr. Brennan's office. Ruby was quiet, withdrawn. Dr. Brennan gave her paper and crayons and asked her to draw how she was feeling. Ruby drew a picture of a girl standing alone, separated from a group of other figures by a thick black line. "This is me," Ruby said, pointing to the lone figure. "And that's my family. There's a wall between us." Dr. Brennan studied the drawing. "Who built the wall, Ruby?" Ruby thought about it. "I think they did. But maybe I helped by being different." My heart shattered. Dr. Brennan shook her head gently. "Ruby, being different didn't build that wall. Their inability to accept differences did. That's on them, not you." We spent an hour talking about boundaries, about how sometimes we have to separate from people who hurt us, even family. Dr. Brennan explained that Ruby had a choice. She could keep trying to win over people who didn't appreciate her, or she could focus on people who did. You don't have to keep knocking on a door that stays closed. "Doctor," Brennan said, "you can turn around and walk through doors that are open." Ruby absorbed this. "Like my friends at school? And Miss Caldwell? They always let me in." Dr. Brennan smiled. "Exactly. Those are your people. The ones who make room for you without you having to change who you are." I saw something shift in Ruby's understanding. She didn't have to keep trying with Patricia, with Simone, with family who made her feel small. She could choose her own family. On the drive home, Ruby was quiet. Then she said, "Mama, I don't think I want to try with Grandma anymore. Is that okay?" I swallowed hard. "Of course it's okay, baby. You get to decide who you let into your heart." Ruby nodded. "I think I'm done trying to make her love me. It hurts too much." I pulled over and hugged her tight. "I'm so proud of you." That took a lot of courage. That night, I made a decision. I'd been holding on to guilt, onto the hope that somehow this family could be fixed. But Ruby had let go, and I needed to do the same. I drafted an email to Patricia, to Simone, to the whole extended family who'd taken sides. "I want to make something clear. Ruby and I are moving forward with our lives. We're not interested in repairing relationships that were broken by your choices. Ruby has decided she doesn't want to pursue a relationship with family members who've hurt her, and I support that decision. We're done trying to fit into a family that never made room for us. We wish you well, but we're closing this chapter. Please respect our boundaries and don't contact us unless there's an emergency with Vernon. Take care of yourselves." I read it 3 times before hitting send. It felt final, like closing a book. Responses trickled in over the next few days. Aunt Lorraine sent a nasty reply about how I was poisoning Ruby against her family. I deleted it. Uncle Raymond sent a sad message about how family should forgive. I didn't respond. Patricia sent a short email. "I understand. I hope someday you'll change your mind." Simone didn't respond at all. And just like that, it was over. The war, the conflict, the back and forth, we were done. Ruby seemed lighter after that. She stopped asking about her cousins, stopped mentioning Patricia. She focused on school, on her friends, on therapy. I watched her bloom, becoming more herself without the weight of trying to please people who couldn't be pleased. Spring came, bringing warmth and new beginnings. Ruby turned 9.5. A milestone she insisted on celebrating with cupcakes and a movie night with her school friends. Her speech impediment was improving with therapy, Her reading was catching up to grade level, and most importantly, she smiled again. Really smiled. With her whole face, the way she used to before Thanksgiving shattered her sense of security. Vernon recovered from his pneumonia and called regularly to talk to Ruby. It'd take her to visit him once a month, meeting him at a park or a restaurant, carefully avoiding Patricia. Vernon never asked why I excluded his wife. He understood. Sometimes understanding doesn't require words. Miss Caldwell pulled me aside one afternoon during picnic. I wanted to tell you that Ruby has made incredible progress this semester. Whatever you're doing at home, it's working. She's confident, engaged, participating in class discussions. She even volunteered to read aloud yesterday, which she's never done before. Tears pricked my eyes. Thank you for telling me. And thank you for being there for her. You've been more family to Ruby than some of her actual relatives. Miss Caldwell squeezed my hand. She's a special kid, Margot. The world needs more people like Ruby, people who are kind and thoughtful and see things differently. Don't ever let anyone make her feel like that's a bad thing. I promised I wouldn't. That conversation stayed with me, a reminder that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the teacher who sees your child's worth, the therapist who helps them heal, the friends who show up without judgment. In early April, I got an unexpected call from Fiona. Margot, I thought you should know. Simone and Gregory are separating. My stomach dropped. Oh no. The kids. Fiona sighed. Yeah, it's rough. Gregory moved out last week. He told me that Thanksgiving was the beginning of the end. Not just the dinner disaster, but Simone's willingness to exclude Ruby to impress his boss showed him something about her character that he couldn't unsee. They've been growing apart ever since. I felt a complicated mix of emotions. I hadn't wanted their marriage to end, but I also couldn't muster much sympathy for Simone. Shed made her choices. How are the kids handling it? Fiona paused. Naomi has been asking about Ruby. She told Gregory she misses her cousin and doesn't understand why they can't see each other. Gregory wants to reach out, to see if maybe the kids could spend time together even if you and Simone aren't speaking. I thought about it. Ruby had moved on, had stopped asking about her cousins. Was it fair to reopen that door? Let me talk to Ruby. If she's interested, we can arrange something. But I'm not forcing her to maintain relationships she's let go of. That night, I asked Ruby how she'd feel about seeing Naomi. Ruby was hesitant. Does she want to see me? Or does Aunt Simone want her to? Smart kid. Uncle Gregory says Naomi has been asking about you. But you don't have to see her if you don't want to. You get to choose. Ruby thought about it for several days. Finally, she said, I think I want to see Naomi. But not at Aunt Simone's house. Somewhere else. We arranged a playdate at a local park. Just Ruby, Naomi, Gregory, and me. When the day came, Ruby was nervous. We got to the park early, and Ruby clung to my hand. When Gregory's car pulled up and Naomi got out, there was a moment of awkward hesitation. Then Naomi ran to Ruby and hugged her. I missed you so much. Ruby hugged her back, and I saw tears on both girls' faces. They ran off to the playground, and Gregory and I sat on a bench nearby. Thank you for this, he said. Naomi's been struggling with the separation, and she kept saying she wished she could talk to Ruby. I think they both need this. I nodded. Ruby needs friends who knew her before all the drama, who remember her as just Ruby. Gregory looked uncomfortable. Margot, I owe you an apology. I should have stood up to Simone about excluding Ruby from Thanksgiving. I knew it was wrong, but I went along with it because I was trying to keep the peace. I'm sorry. It was the first real apology I'd gotten from anyone except Patricia's half-hearted one. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. We watched the girls play, and Gregory filled me in on the separation. Simone is furious with me. She blames me for giving up on the marriage. But honestly, I lost respect for her after everything that happened. The way she talked about Ruby, the way she prioritized appearances over family, it showed me who she really is. And I don't want my daughters growing up thinking that's acceptable. I respected Gregory more in that moment than I ever had. He was choosing values over convenience, teaching his daughters that integrity mattered. Your girls are lucky to have you, I said. He smiled sadly. I hope they think so when they're older and dealing with the fallout of divorce. We made plans for the girls to see each other regularly, and over the following months, Ruby and Naomi rebuilt their relationship. It was different now, more intentional, but it was real. Summer arrived, and Ruby and I took a week-long trip to the beach, just the two of us. We built sandcastles and collected shells and stayed up late watching the stars. One night, sitting on the beach with waves crashing in the background, Ruby said, "Mama, I'm happy. Like, really happy." I pulled her close. "Me too, baby." She looked up at me. "Are you sad that Grandma and Aunt Simone aren't in our lives anymore?" I considered the question honestly. Sometimes I'm sad about what could have been, about the family we could have had if they'd been different people. But I'm not sad about protecting you. I'd make the same choice 100 times over. Ruby nodded. I used to think I needed them to love me to be okay, but I don't need that anymore. I have you and Grandpa, Vernon, and Naomi, and my friends. That's enough. I marveled at her wisdom. At 9 years old, understanding something many adults never learn. That you can't make people love you, and that's okay. You find your people, the ones who see your worth without you having to prove it. You're so strong, Ruby. I'm so proud of the person you're becoming. She hugged me. I learned from you, Mama. You showed me that it's okay to walk away from people who hurt you. That protecting yourself isn't mean, it's necessary. When we got home from vacation, there was a letter waiting from Patricia. I almost threw it away unopened, but something made me read it. Dear Margot, I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. I know my apology at the hospital wasn't enough. I know I hurt Ruby in ways I can't fully undo. I've been going to therapy myself, trying to understand why I favored Simone, why I couldn't accept Ruby's differences. My therapist says I have rigid expectations about what family should look like, and I punish people who don't fit that mold. She's right. I did that to you your whole life. And then I did it to Ruby. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I'm working on myself. I'm trying to be better. And someday, if Ruby ever wants to see me again, I'll be here. I'll do better. I promise. Love, Mom. I read it twice, searching for manipulation or excuses. I didn't find any. It was the most self-aware thing Patricia had ever said to me. I showed it to Ruby. What do you think? Ruby read it carefully. I think Grandma is trying, but I don't know if I want to see her yet. Maybe someday. I hugged her. That's fair. And if you never want to see her, that's fair too. This is your choice. Ruby nodded. Can we just keep living how we're living? With the people who are nice to us. I smiled. Absolutely. Fall came, and with it Ruby's 10th birthday. We had a party at a bowling alley with all her school friends, plus Naomi and Gregory's younger daughters. Vernon came too, beaming with pride at his granddaughter. No Patricia, no Simone, no extended family drama, just people who loved Ruby for exactly who she was. Watching her blow out the candles on her cake, surrounded by genuine smiles and laughter, I felt at peace. People ask me sometimes if I regret what I did. Canceling those credit cards, refusing to back down, essentially declaring war on my own family. They ask if the cost was too high, if I should have just swallowed my pride and maintained peace for Ruby's sake. And every time I look at my daughter, confident and happy and free from the weight of trying to be someone she's not, and I know with absolute certainty that I made the right choice. Because protecting your child isn't petty. Standing up for someone who can't fully defend themselves isn't vindictive. Setting boundaries with people who hurt you isn't cruel. It's necessary. It's love in action. Ruby taught me that you don't need everyone's approval to be worthwhile. You don't need to twist yourself into shapes to fit someone else's expectations. You just need to be yourself and find the people who love that self, the people who make room for you without you having to shrink. We found those people. Our family is smaller now, but it's healthier. It's built on genuine acceptance and love, not obligation and appearances. Vernon calls every Sunday to talk to Ruby. Naomi comes over twice a month for sleepovers. Miss Caldwell, who became a real friend, joins us for dinner occasionally. Dr. Brennan helped Ruby process her trauma and emerge stronger. Fiona checks in regularly, a surprising ally from an unexpected place. These are our people. This is our family. And it's enough. More than enough. It's everything. Last week, Ruby came home from school with an assignment to write about someone who inspires her. She wrote about me. In her essay, she said, "My mom inspires me because she taught me that standing up for yourself is brave. When my family hurt my feelings, my mom protected me, even though it was hard and made some people mad. She showed me that love means protecting people, not just being nice all the time. Because of my mom, I know that I'm worth protecting. And I know that I can stand up for myself too." I cried reading it. This is why I did what I did. Not for revenge, not to punish Patricia, not to prove a point, but to show Ruby that she matters, that her pain is valid, that she deserves to be defended. And she learned that lesson. She learned that she's worthwhile exactly as she is, differences and all. She learned that she doesn't have to accept mistreatment from anyone, even family. She learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to treat you with respect. So to anyone reading this who's wondering if I'd do it all again, if I'd cancel those cards and burn those bridges and fight that war all over, the answer is yes. 1,000 times yes. Because my daughter is thriving. Because she knows her worth. Because she's free from the toxic weight of trying to please people who will never be pleased. And that freedom, that peace, that confidence she carries now, it's worth every lost relationship, every angry phone call, every bit of family drama. Ruby is happy. I'm happy. And we're building a life filled with people who actually deserve us. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say to people who've hurt you is simply, "I'm done. You don't get access to my life anymore. You don't get to benefit from my time, my energy, my help while you treat my child as less than." That power, that choice, it's liberating. And I hope that anyone out there dealing with toxic family dynamics, anyone struggling with whether to maintain peace or protect their kids, reads this and understands. You're allowed to choose your child over everyone else. You're allowed to set boundaries. You're allowed to walk away, and you're allowed to build something new and better from the ashes. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace with family and protecting someone you love? Have you ever had to walk away from toxic relationships, even when it hurt? Drop a comment below and share your story. I'd love to hear it. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more real stories about standing up, setting boundaries, and choosing yourself. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that they're not wrong for protecting their children from people who hurt them, even if those people are family. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And remember, you are worthy of love and respect exactly as you are, and so are your children. Never let anyone, not even family, tell you otherwise. Take care of yourselves out there. You deserve it. Until next time.